Hello, social workers, mental health professionals, and change agents. Welcome to another episode of the Social Work Grants Podcast. I'm your host, Bash Moreno. Saludos a todos. Welcome. Thank you for listening or watching wherever and however you're listening to the podcast. Um, the holidays are here, and sometimes the holidays are not the best of times for many people, and we need to acknowledge that aspect is not the most wonderful time of the year for many people. And I don't like to bust people's bubbles who love Christmas and love all the Hallmark movies and all this other stuff. But it's important to share the setting boundaries for Christmas. And we have toxic family members, we have toxic friends, we like still in a pandemic, and we have vicarious trauma at work that we still a pandemic for the last 18 months, going on to almost 2 years since the first COVID case that we heard about. Um, so today featuring not one but two wonderful licensed clinical social workers, originally from the New York area. One moved out like me, did the great thing and moved out, the right thing and moved out. Um, this episode is sponsored by Bass City Entertainment with my uh, book coming out, Triumph Through Pain, coming out 2022. You can see the logo. I changed the logo with the Bass City Entertainment. Go follow the page. Go follow the page Bass City Entertainment LLC on Instagram and Facebook. So you can follow the podcast on Facebook. Just type in the Social Work Rants Podcast, hit the like button, follow the podcast on Instagram at the Social Work Rants Podcast. That's all one word. And follow the podcast on Twitter at Social Work Rants. So my two friends here, Colette Forrester, licensed clinical social worker, now makes her home in Maryland, my new neighbor, and and one of my favorite past coworkers a long time ago, Darlene Carrera at CSW as well, still in New York, holding it down. Thank you, ladies, for joining, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into it. Colette, I'm gonna start with you. Let people know who you are and what you do in our wonderful field of social work.
Okay, great. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Started out at UC Berkeley, go Bears. I got my undergrad degree in anthropology, focused on cultural anthropology there. And then went on to Columbia University School of Social Work. That's where I met my best friend, Darlene Carrera, and started my social work career in New York City. I've been a social worker for 15 plus years, been working in the field, working in various, clinics, doing a lot of trauma work, case management, both with families and individuals, also too with veterans. And, basically my mission with social work at this point is just, helping people connect with themselves, liberate themselves, help them on their journey in this life through mind, body, and spirit. So focusing in on, the mental health, which connects with also to your physical health and your nutrition. I'm all things that have to do with holistic health. That's my passion. So I appreciate you having us on today.
No, of course. How did you go from anthropology to getting an MSW?
So during the process of getting my degree, like towards the end, I was having this conversation and this epiphany with a professor he was pretty pivotal in my education. And I said, I love anthropology. That's my first love, will always be. However, I want to put my knowledge into practice that's actually going to help people in a way that's more direct service. I think it's great to write books and go out and do research in the field and and, go to various places, but I don't want to write books just for academia. I want to actually work in communities and work with individuals to create change in that way. So I felt social work was it. It's the direct service. It's doing that trauma work. It's going deep with individuals and having an impact, with our communities. So that's how I segued off to that. And he was like, okay, that sounds great. Go to social work school. Yep. See you later. I'll keep in touch.
Well, that's great.
Uh-huh.
Now, Darlene, let people know who you are and what you do in our wonderful field.
Sure, not a problem. Thank you for having me here, Bass. So I'm actually originally from California. I moved to New York City way back, but I started my, social work career. I went to UC Irvine, zot. Those are anteaters. They do this. And got my psychology degree. I got my BA in psychology. And then I decided that, I needed to do more as well. I wasn't quite sure what. I knew I wanted to help people. I knew that I wanted to give and sort of figure that out. And I thought, hey, by going back to school, getting my master's, and New York City to me was a playground at the time. I mean, it still is. And I went to Columbia, and like Colette said, we finished our degree, and I started my career in New York City. I worked in multiple clinics. I've done program development. I have worked in case management, administration, and currently right now I work training other social workers all throughout New York State and in the United States. And we work with helping young adults and their families and as they're battling mental illness and some of the stigma with what they are going through. And so for me, it means a lot to be able to utilize all of the different kinds of skills that I've learned throughout my just being in the trenches, in and out of people's apartments and communities and going from program to hospital and learning all types of systems. What I hope that I can bring to the table is always having sort of a trauma-informed lens and also being very intentional about diversity and equity and inclusion and keeping in mind everyone that it affects. So when I think of holiday, for me, I'm Filipino, so yes, Christmas time, New Year's, but in New York City, there's Hanukkah, there's Kwanzaa, there's folks that don't celebrate Christmas at all, and don't care for any of that. And so you meet so many different kinds of walks of life in New York City. But I think as social workers and what we've all seen, and Colette was saying between the months of October to March, there's multiple kinds of holidays all throughout and anniversaries and things like that. That's just so difficult for just people in general because of anniversaries. And so it's not just the holidays, but it does typically feel that way around December when it's almost the end of the year and sort of people are starting to reflect back and everyone's trying to get together before the end of the year. And so there's this frenzy. So sorry, I segued into that, but it's something that I'm really passionate about. Colette and I, we rant to each other all the time. Bass, I wanted to, be part of your podcast because Colette and I rant every morning about any possible thing. And we just decided this is something that we want to sort of take further as well and put in our social work lens.
No, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, people do take time to, reflect on, the end of years. And this is unlike any other time, we're, like I said earlier, we're going on literally almost two 2 years exactly till we even heard about like the first case of COVID in China, and it's like 2 years later, and we go like 1 foot forward and like three three backwards. And
Mhm.
just this week alone, like Pfizer was like, we need three booster shots. Then like literally like yesterday, as of this recording, they're like, or a fourth one that was like, I feel like we like LeBron James when he went to Miami and he's like, they did the press conference. How many boosters we need? Like, not 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6, 7, 8. Like, I mean, like, I'm like,
Right.
I'll take whatever, as long as I don't like, don't need to get sick, like get my kids sick, get my dad sick, like my fiance sick, like. But at the same time, it's like, and I know the science keeps constantly changing, and it's like figuring out how as they go, which is could be very frustrating, or for people who like to travel or want to get together with families. So, but at the same time, it's like y'all need to get it together.
We need the
That's
parameters,
yes,
right? We
yeah,
need to
yeah,
know the
that's
boundaries.
stressing people out, like without like really like stress, like yeah, stressing people out, and not even like just not really caring. It's just like yeah, just putting out information just to put out information, and then and I'm still frustrated. I'm like, yes, the cases are rising, but at the same time, are people actually being sick? Are actually people being in the hospital? Why don't you talk about people who recovered? I've met so many people who were really sick in the hospital, got tubes up their nose, whatever, and are back home living their lives. Like, why don't you talk about those stories? Then that's what's getting me more frustrated, more than anything else. Like, it's just all the news, and I'm not news bashing it at all. As a former communications major, wanted to be broadcasted, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I gotta talk both sides of the story and not just one thing, which is why a lot of us stop watching news pretty much. What's your take on what's going on? And like, I know you deal with clients on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure you see some of that in your work as well.
Absolutely. It's a lot of confusion, and then at some point it's kind of like, empowering, folks to make decisions for themselves, even given the information that we have, right? Um, at some point, how do you take care of yourself throughout all of this constant change, right? So I feel like it's like how one of my colleagues has said, he said it so well. He was like, we all have an adjustment disorder.
Yeah,
And these
that's
last
a
two,
fact.
it's true. And he was so right. These last 2 years has just thrown all of us, like a monkey wrench in all of our plans. And so like going through this process also too with the clients, like, so I tell them all the time, listen, I'm I'm going through this too with you.
Mhm.
I'm not devoid of this either. And it's one day at a time, because otherwise the feeling of anxiety and overwhelmness, it's a lot.
Mhm.
I see that. And again, it's the constant change and not knowing, and what are the boundaries, what are the parameters, can we go see our loved ones? I really want to see our loved ones. I really want to go on that trip to St. Martin. you know we had plans. Me and
Mhm.
Dar had big plans for our birthdays, and it completely fell apart because COVID had just hit.
Mm.
And it was like, well, we could take a risk. I'm glad that we didn't, because we would have got caught and probably stuck in a beautiful island somewhere, but very far away from our families, which is not good. But it just, it was disappointing. And then for the past 2 years, I think a lot of folks just haven't had a break. Period. Especially all of us that are in the field, who are supporting others, who are providing the services, the clinical services, the case management, whether it's the families or individuals, you know, it's been nonstop for us. Whereas beforehand, we could have taken a break. We could have gone somewhere in September and then again in December and then in the spring, just to kind of curb that burnout and do some self-care. It's been nonstop since COVID started. So, you know, I think it's just been a lot for all of us,
Yeah.
right? On both sides of the seat, of the chair, you know.
Darlene, how's it been for you?
You know, for me, I think all of this sort of running around, because the holidays, you're right. When you first introduced it, you know, the holidays bring up a lot of emotions. So I do feel joy. I do feel excitement. I do feel jolly and merry and all of those kinds of feelings. When I get sentimental, right? I look back at pictures and I look back at like how much fun I have with my family. I miss all my family in California, all my cousins especially, and just sort of laughing and being cheerful and having a blast. And all good memories, especially of times when I was with my grandma and people who are near and dear to me. But, you know, things have changed over time. And I think all of us have had significant losses and complicated grief. And so it's not even just grief over people who have passed, but grief over not having an office anymore, grief over, you know, like things that used to be before COVID that now has to completely shift. You know, we're wearing masks. We can't see each other's faces half the time. And so if you are in a clinic setting, everyone's wearing a mask. I mean, so everybody's covered. And so you're only really seeing the eyes of everybody. But, you know, like even giving somebody a hug, like, you know, I miss that. But so I think just the fact that the holidays also bring up so much other kinds of feelings. So then what we were talking about earlier, feelings of disappointment, feelings of fear, feelings of anxiety, depression, you name it, it also is just a heavy package of a lot of emotions. And, you know, with social work hats always being on our heads, Colette and I, we wanted to talk about, you know, ways in which you can manage some of those holiday blues, I would call it, because not everybody's feeling anxious. Some people are feeling depressed. Some people are just feeling fearful, like avoidant. They don't want to deal with any kind of holiday noise or lights or whatever. And so we really wanted to talk with you, Bass, about just like ways to manage all of these feelings and how to protect your own sort of energy and how to promote self-care, how to create healthy boundaries. And from what, you know, Colette and I were talking a little bit earlier about how boundaries sometimes are, it's a little bit difficult, I would say, to create if you're not used to it. And so you feel bad. And so we kind of had a little bit of a disagreement because I was like, no, I feel great when I do a boundary, because when the boundary is set and they don't cross it, I'm like, yes. But it depends on who you're creating that boundary for, right? So there's all of that. But, you know, this holiday, for example, I'm not going to California. I'm staying local. I will be in New York. That means that I will be Zooming with my entire California family. I don't get to see anybody in person. I'm doing that also just to keep myself safe. There is another variant out there. I don't want to travel with all those thousands of people. I just won't do it this holiday season. I'll take a back seat and I'll watch other people travel and go through all of that headache, and I'm cool. I'm gonna, you know, that's my boundary. I'm creating that boundary of just I'm gonna hold back a little bit, and I'll travel when it's less crowded and less, and the numbers of people who are, being infected by COVID are going down again.
Yeah, and that's important that you do that for yourself. You have to take care of yourself, especially now with this variant coming on, and who knows, be like another variant or whatever. It's important that you have to care for yourself that way, and whether it be masks, vaccines, whatever is your preference. You got to look out for yourself. Now, Colette, what are boundaries look like for you?
So one of the boundaries that I've been really working on is protecting my energy, right? So, and how I show up in places. So if something is not in line with my energy or where I'm trying to go, if it's not something that's uplifting, I'm not going to overcommit myself and show up to every event, and be okay with that. Maybe in my 20s, I definitely wouldn't have had that boundary. I would have overcommitted myself and yes to death and been exhausted,
and broke.
Yes. Because I am one of those people who, have had challenges, in terms of, yes, and people pleasing. So I'm a people pleaser in recovery. So, again, kind of going back to what Dara was saying when we were going back and forth about, setting boundaries. For someone who is very used to being a people pleaser, that may not feel good at first. You got to build that muscle, that no muscle. And in the beginning, it may not feel good because it's just not what you're used to doing, and it can cause confrontation. You can get uncomfortable. But it doesn't mean that it's not good for you. It doesn't mean that it's not healthy to do, because it is. At some point, hey, definitely will be like Darby, like, yes, that's my boundary. That's right. It feels good, right? But yeah, so for me, my boundary and going into the holiday season is one, protecting my energy. I don't have to be at all places at all times. I do not have to get looped into the franticness of the holidays and running out and shopping, doing all of these things that pulls my energy and just drains it. And also too, just going into the holidays with a game plan. Hey, this is what I am going to do, and this is what I'm not going to do. What I am going to do is I'm gonna, get rest. I'm gonna sleep 7 to 9 hours a night, or at least that's my goal. I'm going to drink my water. I'm going, things of that nature. I'm going to take time out for myself, whether that's 20, 30 minutes a day, just to either I can meditate, relax, do nothing, just, be at peace, or get on my Peloton bike, or take a walk, or hang out with my kid, or do some downtime. But these are some boundaries that I'm setting for myself to help me get through the holidays, and just to kind of take a step back a little bit. So I know that, those are some things I encourage everybody to do. You find your own plan that's going to work for you, right? So it may be that you don't go to so-and-so's, like auntie's house this Christmas because, it wasn't such a great thing last year, and it's very triggering, and, it's not where you're at right now, in terms of where you want to go in your own life, and, whatever it is, or you go and you have a game plan. I'm staying for an hour. If I see a family member there who I, maybe not having a good relationship with, I will set these boundaries, and I'll stand firm in them, and I can always leave. And give yourself permission to do that, just give yourself permission to do the self-care, give yourself permission to set boundaries with family. That's hard, but it's necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And stand firm in that. And in your own self-care too, as well. Give yourself permission to rest, to absolutely do nothing for 20 minutes if that's what needs to be done. but these are some of the boundaries that I'm, focused on through this holiday season.
I think too, like I'm just thinking about different obligations, right, that we might feel in our own families. And so that looks different for everybody about like who you're supposed to see, or especially if somebody celebrates a holiday where there is some type of gift giving or presenting of food or whatever it might be, and you don't have it. Let's say it was a really tough year for a lot of people who financially, things changed over the last 2 years of people not working or not having work or whatever. And so sometimes when you're asked to go and, go to a holiday or some kind of event, and you're not where you were before, or let's say you gained 20 extra pounds and you look different, it becomes anxiety provoking, because you don't want to let anybody down, and you're also not coming with bearing the gifts that you did before, or whatever the case may be. I do also agree that, the plan to maybe stay for the hour or whatever, like to come up with that exit plan, to have a plan in your mind about like how you're going to exit and what that's going to look like, and kind of talking it out with somebody who might know what that might look like with you. So that if that is like your partner or your sister or a best friend, and you say like, okay, so if this happens, then I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, right? If that happens, I'm going to go and pivot over here. And so the ability to be as flexible as possible and some of the planning too is going to be helpful, because you just never know what's going to happen. I think that being, I don't think that all or nothing is going to work. The holidays are hard. Everyone should be around people that are good for their mental health. And so whoever that is, it might not all be in, your vicinity. And so making time to be around people who are good for your mental health is important. And sometimes when you're going to these family events or work events or these parties or these, social things, it's not good for your mental health in some ways, right? There might be that one person or that one thing that, what we said before, is like sort of triggering. And so when that happens, what do you do at that moment, right? And how do you kind of how do you talk yourself down? How do you regulate when you see something that you're like, oh man, I knew this was going to happen, right? And how do you kind of get yourself out of getting into that mood of like, oh my God, I told you I should have gone, and feeling very frustrated. So it is really coming up with like a bunch of plans and being flexible and being able to kind of roll with the punches, but knowing that all of those things might happen, and giving yourself some grace.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to touch on the grief part real quick, and it's not necessarily grief of losing a loved one. Yes, a lot of people have definitely lost loved ones, during especially these last 2 years, as soon as COVID hit. But at the same time, like you mentioned the weight gain, and I'm definitely guilty of the COVID weight gain, or a lot of people are, and that's important too. And like maybe you're grieving like how you used to look like, and then like, okay, 2022, like I'm giving myself grace. I'm gonna change it around. Like I let 2021 go, and I gained this weight. Like, okay, 2022, I'm gonna like go back to how it was 2019. So let's do that. Um, we here in the U.S., we had a huge election with huge ramifications, and maybe like we may have to deal with family members who voted, who went against our values, and that, or you had like suspicions, or you're seeing stuff like on social media, and you're seeing like friends that you thought that were your friends, and you knew each other like all these years, and then like you see all these posts that really go against like your values, and all of a sudden they hit you up, oh, like let's hang out during the holidays, and it's like
Mhm.
you gotta make that decision whether you want to do it or not. Like I've had friends who, stop talking to siblings for a little bit because of like political views and stuff like that. So it's those type of grieving and loss as well that needs to be talked about and shared, and that's going to come up during the holidays as well. Like I know family members who's like gone against each other because of political views, and they when they see each other in the holidays, it's like we're not talking politics at all, and having
Mhm.
that boundaries, like we do not say this person's name. We're gonna act like we Whoopi Goldberg and not mention the previous president by name, and it's like we don't. That's like our trigger word. Like we don't say that, and
Right.
as long as we don't have that type of conversation, we'll have a good time. So it's stuff like that's important as well, and like, keep in mind as well that you gotta like, juggle like different things that kind of like blend in together as well.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'm going to touch on you were talking about like the weight gain, because holiday parties, desserts, all of all that food that anybody had for Thanksgiving or Friendsgiving,
Right.
to be able to eat and drink in moderation is super important and helpful. And so, another sort of just managing anxiety and the blues is like, can't overdrink, you can't overeat, you can't, all of those things are just not good for you. And for folks who are, let's say, on a diet right now, right? It's really hard to be on a diet during the holidays. I don't know how anybody's able to do it, but I think some people who want to look really good for a specific event or whatever, to come into a holiday party and see every possible kind of like dessert made, to be able to say no, right? And have some self-control. That's hard. And especially if you're feeling a lot of different feelings, right? It's so much easier just to kind of like eat your way through anxiety and
Hmm.
stuff your face when you don't want to talk to somebody, like, yeah, and walk away and do what you need to do. But so in terms of like sort of nutrition and things like that, I don't have much advice about that. I think Colette probably has a lot more to say about how to moderate that, the sort of the overeating and the anxious kinds of ways that
Mhm.
we go about that.
I think it goes back to having a game plan, right? So checking in with yourself, because you know that you're going to go to this holiday event or to the family member's house, whoever's, and there's going to be a plethora of food. Maybe you can't wait to have, so and so's, mac and cheese or pernil or whatever. Like this is like the event that you're going to have it, right? So it's a game plan. So you're like, okay, I'm gonna drink my water before I go. I'm gonna make sure that I don't, that I eat something, so I don't start,
Right.
show up and your belly is completely empty. you know, get your rest because this goes back to talking about the anxiety that you were saying, Dar, like the anxiety of getting like mentally prepared to show up at a social event. So, getting your rest, drinking that water, having a good meal, just like how you normally do before you go to an event. So that when you show up, you're like, okay, well, yeah, I could have this. That's right. I can have a little taste here and there. Um, but there'll be another time. This isn't the only time I could have this dish. I can have it again another time. Or, just being like, okay, it's one event, one meal, enjoy your life, and then the next meal, move on. Next day, move your body, go take a walk, drink your water, go to sleep, don't stress yourself. We already have enough stressors. I
Hmm.
mean, through this pandemic, it's like if the worst that happened to us is that we gained 20 pounds, we still have our lives.
Mm,
I mean,
absolutely.
there's like there's gratitude in that. We can always lose a 20 pounds, but we can't bring back another Bass. We can't bring back another dog or Colette or our family members. So, hey, we'll have an opportunity to lose it. It's one step at a time. So if you go, you enjoy that meal, don't guilt yourself. You have it, move on. Have your fruits and veggies, drink your water, go to sleep, take a walk, But I think like it's the guilt that gets us in that cycle of, oh, well, I had a whole plate and I got some pie here. Oh, well, I'm gonna have another piece. And oh, well, it's the next day. I got leftovers. So I'm gonna have another piece.
Got the leftovers.
And now we're months and months and months, and it's just like, what are we doing? Right? What are we doing? Like, I think not overcomplicating it is helpful.
Yeah. So of course, and it's important. We got cultural foods that we think about in our family, like you mentioned the panid and the rice and beans, and arroz con pollo, and
That's right.
I know Filipinos, they throw down too. So
Yes.
food too.
Lumpia, pancit.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So
it's all of that, I think. But I also think that beyond giving yourself sort of that self-compassion and grace, because if you acknowledge that it's going to be difficult on, let's say, on Christmas Day, because you're not going to be with family, right? Like, so for myself, if I know that on the 25th, I'm not going to be home with my mom, my dad, my, sisters and brothers and cousins and things like that, like I can give myself some self-compassion to just, give myself grace, but also to give other people grace during this time. Like what we were saying, like, you don't know what another person is going through. You don't know what losses that they've endured throughout 2021 or 2020 or 2019. You don't know what people are really feeling. It allows for us to also continue that sort of, to be flexible. Like, things happen, you might have made this great plan to meet with somebody, and then or let's say you are getting on a plane to go or on a train to go see family members, and you're late or it's delayed, or there's an accident and things happen, and so you can't get to where you're going to. And I mean, people really stress out about those kinds of things, right? Like sort of and just to honor that, like, that happens, and to give each other grace and to being kind to one another, because you just don't know what another person is kind of going through. Now, obviously, always kind of creating your boundaries and sort of protecting your energy. However, like, crap happens, things happen, and to be mindful that sometimes it's not all personal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely is not all personal, and like we need to also get back to agreeing to disagree on opinions. Okay, let's respect other people's opinion. Okay, let's agree to disagree and keep it moving, and let's live our lives. Like, we really, at least here in America, we really lost that, and we lost it for a while. This is even before a certain somebody was president. So even before that, like, we really lost that in the country. And sometimes, people might say something, okay, and whatever, just like, if it's really going to bother you, then that's on you. But people gonna say stuff just to say stuff. People say stuff just to trigger buttons and just get a response. And US is really like, oh, look at me society. So it's just, it is what it is, and just allowing yourself that grace, and just focus on you. There's still, there's money to be made. There's like living life. There's life to live. Like, live for yourself. You got kids. You got kids to worry about and deal with, and worry about their mental health, and they make sure they're doing the right thing, and they're for kids getting back into school in a school building for the first time for a lot of people for 2 years, and these kids are like wilding out and like look. Some of them look like they've never been outside before, and it's only been like 2 years, and it's like. I know you've been to a grocery store at least one time in your life. Like, let's get it together. Let's start simple with saying good morning. Like, good morning. How are you? Like, it's like, and it's just.
Do you need a session pass? Did something happen?
It's just what I'm seeing, like working with the schools and like in district, and like, and it's twofold. Is like I had this conversation with another social worker. It's like going back to the basics of one-on-one of being humans. Like when you like want to shake somebody's hand, like you shake somebody's hand with the right hand. It's just common courtesy. Or if you have to for whatever reason, like excuse my left, I have to give you like my left hand, and it's just saying good morning. And I've had like seen like staff people, like as soon as somebody doesn't have the mask on or is like below their nose, is like put your mask up. I'm like, damn, like tell the kid good morning first before anything else. Like like I try to be COVID free as much as anybody, but I'm gonna say good morning first before like I even say anything about a mask. Like,
Right.
So it's just like these basic things that we like, the pandemic has really like opened eyes of stuff we didn't have to deal with 2019 and before that. So it's like almost like a new normal, and it's unfortunate. It's just we like going like ass backwards a little bit as a society sometimes. Now speaking of kids, like I know you both are parents. How's the pandemic been with a little one in the house?
Oh boy. I don't think we got enough time for this one. But I will show my gratitude to be able to have that much time with my son when he was home for a whole entire year and a half. That was a lot of time to spend with my son, and time that I will never get back, and time that I realized was meant for us to spend that time with each other. Because prior to COVID, I was dropping off my son in front of his school at like 7:45, 8 o'clock, and then not picking him up till 6, right? So you can count all of those hours where I'm not in my son's face, and he's at school and he's with school officials and teachers and his classmates and after school and all of those kids. And so we're not spending any time together. And then you fast forward to 2020 when we are home with each other 24/7, 7 days a week, nonstop. And to hear him in school, right? Because I would hear his teacher on, the Google Classroom or Zoom or whatever platform they were using, for him to immediately ask me for help for a math problem or a definition of what a word means, to constantly asking me for a snack and that he's hungry. Mom, where's the milk? Mom, where's my shoes? Where's my this? Mom. I'll miss all of that. I do love that he's back in school. He loves that he's back in school too. But that time that we had with each other, I will take it and I will cherish it, because I don't think that I'm going to have that kind of time again. Especially, he was 8, 9, 10 when that was happening, he's still growing.
Yeah. How about for yourself, Colette?
So I will say, I agree with Dar. I do have a lot of gratitude. I remember like in the beginning of my motherhood journey, I begged the moon, the stars, the sun, God above, everything. I was just like, I would do anything to step out of work so that I could be with my child for the first couple of years of her life, right? So, I mean, that was just, I mean, I just tried to figure out every plan I could just to make that happen. It didn't happen. Um, I got 6 months home with my baby, so I was happy for that, but I wanted to be home more. So
Mm.
when the pandemic hit, it was kind of like, oh, well, is this only for a couple weeks? Or like, and then as it was going on, I was like, oh, wow, this is, wow. So I'm staying home. Wait a minute. No, I'm not staying home. This is, she was like all of 4 years old in preschool. And like, about to go to kindergarten. School shut down on me, completely closed on all of us parents. So I was like, okay, well, yeah, I can run a preschool at home and work full time. And no, no, okay, it just no, didn't, yeah. And then it was a lot. It was a
Mhm.
lot. God bless teachers. They're amazing human beings on this planet. Um, because it really takes a special person to do that type of job. And I am grateful for them being back in school. It was, it was a good time in the sense, like how Dar was saying, I got to spend all this time with my daughter that I hadn't had with her since she was 6 months old.
Mm.
And I just kept thinking, like, as we were going on in like the pandemic for months and months, I'm like, wow, I feel like this is the most parents have spent with their child for the last maybe 1 to 2 generations, because everybody's been working,
Mhm.
putting their kids in
Nonstop.
daycare nonstop. So it was like, we had to pause. We had to, like, who else, there was no daycare, there was no school.
Exactly.
So it's like, well, now you're home, you got to, So it was a blessing. And also too, it was a huge challenge.
Mhm.
And you just every day thinking, okay, I hope I taught the right thing, in terms of like, okay, we're trying to reading and then we're doing the math and then, okay, how much time are we spending? And you got to work at the same time, and then your kids go back to school and you want to make sure that they're at grade level and not
Mhm.
behind. As a parent, what you gonna do? You're doing the best that you can with what you have. So
Right. And that
talk
that
about
that's going back.
grace.
That exactly. That's what I was getting. You gotta allow grace as a parent that you tried the best you can. That you had to work and only that, just social work is hard and like
Yeah.
some of our jobs like was not ready to
Mm-mm.
be virtual at lockdown, and
Yes.
unfortunately we had some of us still had to go to the office until the agencies got it together with their Zoom or whatever platform they had to use. I know for myself, I still had to go to the office after the shutdown for a few weeks, and like we've been telling y'all we could do half of this stuff from home, and like
Right.
y'all needed to get together, which they finally did, but
Right.
it took some time. It took for me to still be on the freaking train, like, well, at the shutdown, and it's like in New York, and it's like, and then I'm looking at my coworkers, it's like, are you coughing? Like,
Right.
stay away, sharing an office with other people, and like
Right.
with no window, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right.
but that's the reality. Like you're looking around and you seeing people, or you notice people that were coming in every day, and then they're missing 1 or 2 days. I'm like, they got it, or they
Yeah.
got caught something, and it's or they missed a week, or they came back and like they left
You
again,
clearly
and it's
come
like,
in.
did
Right. Right.
you coming premature to be fine?
Yeah. Just stay
But
over
it
there.
was yeah, stay over there, and like even the other day I caught myself like, damn, we really been like 2 years like with a
Mm-hmm.
mask, like nothing. And it's just been crazy, like to
Yeah.
just all of that. Just I miss touching my face. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
people don't talk about like I drink a lot of coffee and like smell my own coffee breath like in the mask. So it's like, where's my gum at?
I was gonna say that, during during the time of just having our kids at home, what is helpful, and even it applies to sort of the holiday blues and managing it, is the check-ins. The check-ins that you do with your people, whoever that is, right? Like the people that are closest to you. And Colette and I definitely would check in with each other. We check in with each other every day, actually. You know, how are you doing today? How's today? And depending on when we call each other, it was like right after a drop off, right after, a hard time with a client, after a terrible work meeting, and you're just checking in to be like, are you okay? Am I going?
Right.
Is everything all right here? And you touched, Bass, on just, the humanness of saying good morning, saying, hello, how are you? And then the request to put up your mask. That means a lot, and especially with anybody that we interface, we have to remember that people are people, and to look people in the eye and to acknowledge them and to say like, hey, how are you? Can you please cover your mouth? You're coughing, or whatever the heck. Like, the check-in is important, but make sure you address them first with a hello before you start asking them questions, and telling them what to do. I just think that people forget, and maybe it is that power and authority and privilege and all of that people think that they could just talk to whoever like they want to. We have to remember that there is a way to speak to others, regardless if they're 4, 6, 10, 15, 30, 100. And to say good night and good morning is nice.
Absolutely. So like some of that social isolation kind of, definitely impacted our social skills a bit collectively, right? And just kind of like you were saying, Bass, like, oh, you hear somebody cough or sneeze at the office, you're like, wait a minute now. Wait a minute now. It's kind of like, let me go sit over here. As before, we would have just been like, okay, well, I'm not going to just move from my seat. That would be rude. Now it's just like, absolutely not. I'm getting up. I'm going to the other side of the room.
Taking that Lysol spray.
Exactly.
Hey. When you got no ventilation and you have this air flowing in a build, like that is, please, like, go over there. We're gonna eat lunch separately.
Right.
Yeah, even when I'm doing my sessions now with the kiddos, once they done, I'm like, I got my Lysol and I'm like spraying, because even though they got their mask on, or most of the time they had their mask on covered, I'm like, all right, I'm still spraying, like I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, it's all those protective measures, right, that we have to take now, that it's like we didn't really think of beforehand. It impacts how we do our work, and it impacts how we just move, period, or who we go around. Like, so for instance, when you're talking about like certain friends or family members, they may have certain opinions about, whether it's COVID or like precautions. Some people, they might not share the same type of heightened or urgency that you share in terms of, being sanitary with everything. Some people may not think that you need to sanitize. Like, it could be your friend doesn't think that you need to sanitize after you come out of the grocery store every time. And maybe you do. I'm one of those people. I sanitize after I come out of the grocery store. Exactly. Sanitizing. That's my practice, right? But maybe your friend doesn't feel that way. Maybe your friend thinks you don't have to wear a mask, when you go X, Y, and Z place. And maybe you feel like you do. It's like, it's sometimes kind of hard. You're like, okay, well, I don't know if I can hang out all the time with you. Or like, I don't know if we can get together and have like you're over for dinner. You just went on a trip. Exactly. On a cruise. Yeah. And and maybe that's
that on cruises. I'm just like, that doesn't sound appealing to me right now.
Right. But maybe that's that's something that's your boundary, right? But if you feel it's unsafe, but your friend or your family might not feel that way. They might feel like, you know what, it's not a big deal. I can just, take my mask, do my vaccination, and I'm fine. And I can just continue to travel. I mean, everybody's different. So it's like, how do you negotiate? How do you negotiate these friendships and family members and hanging out, when to know when to hang out and not to hang out, if they move a little bit differently than you do, but you still want to see them. I think it's just been challenging. Like, we've had to negotiate a lot, like what risk we're willing to take, during COVID, who to hang out with, who not, it's a lot.
That's also about just knowing what you can and can't control.
Right.
Right. So like the negotiating and maneuvering with your family, friends, and people is one thing, but knowing what you can control, right? So like, I can't control what my friend's going to do. They either going to come and wash their hands on their own. You can lightly suggest it and they might still not wash their hands, but I know for me, I can control, I'll wash my hands, right? I'll know that my hands will be clean. But to be able to know what you can and can't is very important in just trying to manage just the anxiety overall. And if it's just too much for you, then you have to learn to walk away or create the boundary.
Yep.
And say, like, I will not be able to see you if you're not going to wear a mask, because my 3-year-old is with me and is not vaccinated, and I can't be around people who haven't been vaccinated and don't have a mask on, period.
Right. Goes back to that boundary again. That boundary, where's your boundary at?
Exactly.
Where you drive the line in the sand at?
No, absolutely, and that's important, and just something that I just thought of going back to grieving. Just like, I miss taking my kids to school. Like, we used to like walk them to school, and we'll like race once we hit the corner right around like school. And now, not we drive them to school now, but just missing that time. Like, okay, we're gonna have a race, and I'm literally like the the parent. Everybody's walking, and like, we're racing who gets to the front of the school building first, and like, my son's like up ahead and my daughter's like behind me. Like, you need to catch up, because stop being a slow poke. But just having that, and having like overhearing like the conversations of the kids are having, and then like, okay, like, what was that about? Just be nosy and starting those using those social work skills as well, like trying to be nosy, like all up in the conversation without like fully eavesdropping, and get to know like the other kids, and like get to know who they're about. Like, you missed that stuff now. Like, my kids, all their work is on the freaking iPad. It's like, I ain't got like no textbook, like no word book, like nothing. Like, how am I supposed to know what the hell you doing in school? Like, unless you tell me. So it's like, I miss like checking their work, and like making sure that they're doing correctly, and like everything's like online, and it's like messing me up as a parent to really like parent how I was parenting before pandemic.
Well, how old are your kids, Bass? What are the age ranges?
Both my kids are January babies. My son is going to be 13 and my daughter's going to be 10.
Oh, wow. January babies. I have a January baby as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, January 3rd.
My daughter's the 4th.
Oh my gosh. Oh, nice. So that means birthday parties are always indoors somewhere. Well, before COVID, I should say.
Yeah, exactly.
Before COVID,
she'll get a cake right in the house.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. These winter babies.
She told me the other day, it's like, you can't do a birthday party like you did a couple of years ago, and when you wore a tiara in front of my class. So I was like, you're not gonna embarrass me. I'm like, we can't have parties anyway because of COVID, so you don't have to worry about that. Just relax.
Right.
Watch your tone.
You're like, I'll get you the next time in terms of embarrassment.
Exactly.
This is like a lifelong thing as a parent.
Yeah.
I know going back juggling Zoom and parenting while still trying to work. I'm like turn on your freaking camera right now. Like, turn it on. He's like, I will hit you in front of your teacher or the Zoom class. Do not play with me.
Yeah, that running to get to that morning Zoom, and then the break and the down the hallway. Are you in front of the class? Did you get the green flag? It's just like a mad dash. Trying to like maneuver that schedule and work. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, and I moved too because I purchased a home in 2021, and when we first moved, I had like no internet. Using my Wi-Fi for like the first couple weeks on the phone.
Wow.
And like everybody, here's the I'm using my phone Wi-Fi like
like the
hotspot on my phone,
hotspot.
and my fiance using her hotspot on her phone, and it's like here until we finally Verizon
Yeah.
came in, and we all sitting on like chairs with no furniture or sitting on freaking our stairs doing Zoom calls at work, and it's like it's just been crazy.
Yeah, try to do whatever you can,
Setting my own boundaries. Like, I just purchased a house. I ain't got no furniture. This is how I'm gonna look like, whether you like it or not.
Hey, you're still showing up.
I'm showing up.
Yeah.
And my background picture got like my Lakers jersey with like my arms showing out, like my fake muscles, my 2019 muscles, like this how I'm looking for the meeting until I turn my camera on. So I need to relax. And like my coworkers text me, look at Bass, look at Buff, and this profile picture on the Zoom.
Well, congratulations on buying a home during the pandemic.
Yes.
And moving.
Both of you have a very similar story, because Colette also bought a house, right? 2021 during the pandemic. So both of you, now that you're neighbors.
Yeah.
What are things you're seeing in Maryland? Because I know I went to some farm in Milford Farms or some.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it was the name of the farm in late 2020, and I know the governor and the mayor of Baltimore was acting like New York State with de Blasio and Cuomo going back and forth beefing. And then I went to the farm, and it's like nobody had a mask on, like, and they strictly said like Maryland has got their own set of rules. If you're coming from out of state, we do things a little different. So when we got there, it's like there's like mad people here. And like 85% had no mask on, and my family, we all got masks on. It's like, let's go get our damn apples and like get our apple cider donuts and keep it moving. Let's get out of here.
I that's the farm that's in Elkton, isn't it? Or the Milburn Farms? Is that the one? Yeah, I know exactly which farm. So I will say that coming from California to Maryland during the pandemic was a big difference, like night and day. Like the shelves were stocked in Maryland. You could get eggs at any time of the day here. People were moving around with much more ease than my experience when I was in the Bay Area. I think things here also too, it's so spread out. So, and there's a lot of like you said, farms they're outside. So, I think that has to do with a lot of that too. At least I could say when I was in the Bay Area, and living in a city. So it's different than when I came to Maryland. I wasn't in a city. I was out pretty much in the country, suburban country, I guess you could say. So people maneuvered.
I guess suburban is like rural.
Yeah, it was rural. Yes. I mean, going from having the bay in my backyard, like literally in my backyard, and like living, next to, lived in a city, and then to go to living next to like a farm with cows and I would hear it every morning and smell manure and people mowing their lawn. It was completely different. So, you know, it's definitely, I could see the difference here. You know, but also too, their rates were really good here in terms of COVID. I mean, they, you know, did a good job with, you know, just, you know, with how they handled it in the state of Maryland. So I think that was a big difference too. I mean, New York as well. New York wasn't playing, so.
Not in the beginning, but you know, hey, well,
right. But, you know, they got it together. But yeah, it was definitely a bit of a shock when I moved here. But so far so good, knock on wood.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're back here. I'm glad you're back on the scene. It took an adjustment when she moved to Maryland because we would have to figure out the 3-hour difference.
Yes.
And so, you know, if I called her around 3:00 my time, it was, you know, noontime over in Cali. And so when she finally moved, I kept saying, oh, wait, what time is it? And she's like, girl, we're in the same like time zone. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And it took a little bit for me to adjust to Colette being back on this side. So I'm happy you're there. I got to make some visits, you know.
Yeah.
We need a social work home visit.
Yeah, we do. We definitely need a home visit because we're all like, I mean, hey, you can pick a place and it's all within driving distance.
What is it called? Milford Farms. Well,
they have good apple cider.
We'll get some apple cider, guys. We'll get
apple cider and apple cider donuts.
Those donuts
those donuts
are fire.
Talking about self-care.
Moderation. Yes. Just a couple donuts.
Just a couple of them little donuts in the bag. They're nice and warm. Yep. I'm definitely down for a social work home visit. With masks, right?
Yes. And if we have to, gloves as well, because
right.
gloves.
I got sanitizer. For everybody.
I think we all got PPE. We have a bunch of PPE between the three of us. I'm sure we'll have the whole getup.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But also you gotta like also think about just make fun of the situation too. Like we got gloves on. We looking like Blue Man Group and like damn, Michael Jackson really had like something going on with that mask on all this time. It was like,
hey, something to it.
Mm-hmm.
Or in New York, we've seen people on the 7 train with masks on. Like, oh yeah, y'all were ahead of the game for all these years. So.
Yeah,
those masks have. I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but I've seen like not as much colds and flus, at least in our circle.
Mm-hmm.
Since the masks have been on. So I think there's something to it. But I would say that maskne, have you guys heard of that maskne, that acne that's caused by mask? Oh gosh.
No, that's real. Yeah, no, that's real.
You know, I was like, oh Lord. In the beginning, I said, oh we're gonna have to work this out. It's just, you know, it's created its own little, situation. But yes, I'm grateful for the mask. But maskne is a real thing. You know, definitely a real thing.
I'd rather get that than being in a ventilator and in a hospital. Like
there we go.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even going back to the kids from like, even if you like go outside real quick or go to school, like you better like behave yourself. Don't be jumping around acting like no food, because I'm not going to no hospital. Like I don't want to hear about you twisting the ankle. I know kids need to be kids, but better not break no ankle, break no kneecap, nothing. Go to school in one piece, coming back in one piece, because you're gonna get a wrap around wherever you hurt, and you're going to school.
Unless you're bleeding out, we are not going to the hospital, right?
No emergency room for you today.
It's like no emergency room, no urgent care. Like nothing. You can be like,
I mean, listen, I was doing that. My son is in flag football, and so the whole entire season watching him, I'm like, please, 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 please. It was that fear of like, yes, if he really got hurt, then I'd have to visit a hospital. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I like, not to say I don't want to be in hospitals for any social work friends and
Mhm.
doctors who are in the hospital, nurses. It's more so just like, I'm fearful of being there
Yeah. Yeah. No, it
any
makes
extra
sense.
time than I need to, even at the airport too. So we recently traveled to California a couple of times, and I want to be in and out. Like, I want to get there, get on the plane, get at the airport, leave the airport. I don't want to linger anymore
Yeah.
than I need to. Those are like so many germs in
Mhm.
places like that where there's just a lot of people congregating. It doesn't feel safe to me. So I'd rather avoid, yes, the
Like
hospitals and
Yeah.
places
I'm
like
like on myself after work and like taking off my clothes. Like I did like so much laundry. At least the beginning,
Oh,
I like
yeah.
strip as soon as I come home, close my door, and like strip in front of my door, like go right to the
right to
washing
the
my clothes.
shower. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Clothes aren't lasting as long as they used to because we have to wash them even more and more and more and like disinfect, right? Like you can't, I mean, we always wash our clothes, but
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
saying, like,
exactly.
from doing what you were saying, Bass, like, because I do home visits. And so one of the main things I do as soon as I get home, everything has to go, everything has to get washed, everything disinfected, shoes off, sprayed, everything. So, it's all the things is to kind of like protect ourselves and also too, so that we don't carry stuff into our households to our family
Mm.
and then back out again to work, and to our clients, vice versa too. So, yeah, those washing machines are getting their money's,
Tide, Tide, and all of the.
they're making a killing right now.
That's why I preach like we need to start investing in stocks because some of these companies like still making a killing and we still advocating for our loans to be paid and so it's like
Oh, oh boy, yes. Yeah. The student loans.
coming up in 2022 student loans.
Well, is that our next podcast?
Yeah,
Matt?
we can do a whole couple of podcasts on that.
We got a lot of ideas. I mean, one of the reasons why we got together, Bass, too, is so we're kicking off our own sort of, I don't even know what we're gonna call it, so I don't want to speak too much of it, but we do have a name of what we're calling ourselves, and Colette came up with a name, so I'm gonna have Colette say it.
So it's Mamas with the Mic. So, coming
I like the
to,
name.
oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, is it related to social work or just gonna be just talking?
It's always going to be real. I think we can't take off our social work hat. I mean, as much as I try, like our intersectionality, who we are, it's hard to separate the social work from the mama, from the woman, from all of the different things that we are. So I think it'll always have a social work aspect because that is our training, that is our foundation of what we've learned. And so although we are mamas, I think we also will have the social work aspect forever within us and internalized, unless somebody tells us to, like, you stop therapizing me.
Right.
I've had that thrown at me a couple of times. I'm like, I'm just keeping it real. Like, if it comes up as social work is what you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, good, definitely, good luck with that. There's plenty of awesome social work podcasts out there that are really, killing it, talking about, real issues going on in social work, and bigging each other up in terms of connections and things like that, and really have like grown together, and doing stuff together, making presentations, and being invited to social work schools to do presentations and things like that. So there's definitely a huge community, and it's growing by the months and by the years. I've had other social workers reach out to me like, I start a podcast and do things. So it's definitely growing.
Good. We'll have to have you on, Bass, whenever this
definitely.
kicks off. We'll definitely have you as an honorary guest.
Yeah, I would love to. It's obviously gotta with our parent, or being parents, and like make sure like the kids are down and that they actually asleep.
Yes.
So fake sleeping, like
Yeah.
y'all in school now. There's no Zoom. Like go to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Or that I thought that you were asleep, and they hear you talking on something. Kind of peeking in, and yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Dad, you doing your podcast? I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, be quiet. Like they hear you. Now I gotta edit that out. You really have to get food right now, like crunching, munching. And
Exactly. That water, you have to fill up that cup of water again.
Oh,
okay.
Yes. What was happening before we got on Zoom, Dar? Right? For all of us, I'm sure.
My son Manny, he just kept popping in and out. Well, he wanted to see his Auntie Coco, so he was like, "Hi, Auntie Coco. Hey, how you doing?" Like I'm just like, babe.
Sophia may
want Bass.
No problem. Sophia, my daughter, she made one of the videos. She made a quick cameo real quick just to give me a hug while I was recording. So like, good night. Okay, bye. Like whatever.
Right. Hey, they might want their own podcast, all three of them together,
My son kept asking me, like, I want to be on your podcast. I'm like, what the hell are you going to talk about? You ain't talking about no Roblox unless you're encouraging people to invest in Roblox stock, or you need to come up with some like legit idea. It's not some rambling stuff because you want to ramble. Like, no, get out of here.
I'm sure they would find some stuff to, it's funny.
But shout out to my son. He did do my theme song for the podcast. So I gotta give him credit. He's still asking. He's still asking for some money for the recording. I'm like, it's coming.
Hey, at least he knows his worth. He's like, listen, I'm not doing this for free. I know my worth.
Where can people find you?
We're figuring that out. We will let you know. We have our individual email addresses, Bass, for now. We're trying to kind of merge some of our things together, and because I'm in New York, Colette's based in Maryland, and so we're trying to figure out what kinds of things we're gonna merge together and other things that we're gonna have sort of kind of standalone, because I think we both have similar goals and values, but we're also slightly different in some of the aspects of who we want to help, and sort of populations, although very similar. So still a little bit different, but the mamas with a mic, that's going to be something that we will incorporate, and once we figure that out, we will definitely get that to you, Bass. You'll be one of the first people to have our card.
Absolutely. As they say, we're building the airplane in the sky as it's going, or whatever that saying is. We're building it as we go. So, work in progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like the logo behind me is a little, work in progress, build it, foundation, and then 2022 is about monetizing.
Yeah. There you go. Goals right there.
Exactly.
Love it.
Last question. What are 2022 goals besides Mamas on the Mic?
So I did my vision board. So there's a lot of just different kinds of aspects on my vision board that signify not dimming my light and being very conscious of the special skills and who makes me, and just honoring that and who that is. A lot of traveling, even though now I'm just like, oh, what is that going to look like? So I had a lot of just sort of traveling kinds of quotes because I still want to explore. I feel like that bucket list kind of got short-lived at 2020. And then I want to sort of rebuild back up what that looks like for me. So 2022 is a lot of like honing in on like what makes me and being proud of what that is, and then traveling, and then just, you know, continuing to build my home here in the Bronx, New York.
Yes.
Trying to still figure that out too, because I think if there is a move, it has a lot to do with where my son's school is. I don't want to travel too far. I don't want him to travel too far. I want things to be kind of within control, right? And I don't want him to be traveling for an hour and a half to a school. So all of that will come into play. And then love is also on my board too. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, so lots of good things.
Yeah, I thought about doing a vision. I thought about doing a vision board too, and there's a lot of stuff I want to.
Yeah.
I could do a vision board party. We could definitely do a vision board exercise. I've done it with my staff before I left the clinic. I did 2 vision board exercises, and I think it's definitely helped prompt activity and getting, you know, moving towards your goals. So vision boarding for me really works because then you're putting it out there and things start to sort of flow.
Putting out in the existence for it to happen.
Yes.
Colette, what about you?
So this year, my goal is to continue to be intentional with like my energy and time spent, to move more towards like the things that I'm passionate about, and that I'm, you know, that like get me excited, right? And not so much the mundane, because I feel like it's been mundane these last couple of years, I think for everybody, but just, you know, doing more things that I love to do, you know, focusing more on like the holistic health, like, you know, merging, you know, the mental health piece again with the nutrition and like the whole mind, body, spirit connection, doing more work with that in myself and helping other people on their journey. Another goal is getting settled in my house.
That is a fact. Yes.
It's a forever project, so I have to treat it that way and not rush into trying to do everything, but just kind of getting settled into it, and just also too, you know, continuing my gratitude practice, because that goes back to the house too. Just sitting back and being like, wow, like just being grateful and being in the present moment, doing more of that in 2022, because, you know, it's a mad dash to get here, and then you're like, oh, I got to do the next thing. I got to do the next thing. I got to get this for the house, or I got to do this, that. But you're not enjoying it. Like you got to enjoy the process. So, you know, so that's a goal. Hopefully we can get in some travel. You know, like I'm dying to get back out there and travel. Am I ready yet? No, but I'm in my mind, I'm ready to go travel. So definitely want to do that, and just, you know, again, just spend more time with the things that I'm passionate about and that really, really, really get me excited and motivated. You know, just in general, to live. That's my goal, 2022, to live, not exist. but to live, you know.
Amen.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, ladies, for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bass. This
So,
was great.
fun. Loved it.
Yeah. Keep doing this, Bass.
Yes, keep
love
doing
it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.